to do that. Okay. So tonight's public hearing is on. We're going to walk through the budget page by page, and I don't think I need to introduce the town board. Everybody's familiar with one another, but we do want to go through this budget, and then that is the purpose of our public hearing for tonight. So if anybody's listening and they have questions, we're happy to call on people. Any answers we don't have, we'll get back to you on. So please state your name and your typically your address, not your full address, just your street number is typically what we do. And make sure that way if we have it and we need to get back with you on with some information, we can do that easily. Okay. All right. First, let's walk through. This is the preliminary budget. Hold on. I really have to learn somebody else's computer to do this. For 2022, and we had just voted at the last meeting to change the tentative over to the preliminary, as is the process. And let me get this out of my way here. So, okay. So for walking through the budget on page 1, I think the important thing to see here is, this is our summary, and then we're going to go through the individual pages. But the general fund and the amount to be levied is $1,072,966. And when we go through the next, the follow-up pages that we go through, that this is the same amount that we have levied since 2019. We started, we'll walk through it in the next page, but it went down and then it's been flat ever since. So this is the same amount this year. There are some small tweaks. The drainage district, we have one special district. We may end up looking at number 2 over at Liberty Way for the forthcoming year. That's going to be something that we have to research. But the drainage district went up $50 because we haven't increased that since it started, and we're going to have to start making some changes in that, and perhaps a new drainage district. The fire budget was submitted after they voted on it at $955,788. It went up versus last year for ambulance services. But if you go down to the bottom of this page, what the important part, I think that most, I'm doing this a little quick. Sorry, it's not mine again. If you go down to the bottom of this page, I think the most important thing is that the budget is at $3.04 per thousand, which is down a little bit from the 306 last year. So, you know, we were looking at taxes today, and I think given that we've been able to keep this number flat or a little bit lower, it's actually a really good thing
yeah, especially
for the taxpayers. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges. So I think, you know, we worked to do this. It doesn't include everything that we want. We've got in our next meeting, we're going to talk about our fund balance and then how we want to allocate to capital projects for 2022, and that can be changed at any time. Oh, thank you. That can be changed. You know, we'll start talking about that at the next meeting. But so there are some things that that are high priorities that may end up being a higher priority. Some suggestions and some requests that came in after the departmental budgets were done, but for things like one project that we have not on any infrastructure, and we do want to consider as we look at the bigger picture, things like digitizing the building department. I mean, it's overflowing with paper, and we need to start, you know, there are things that we want to do to get the oldest stuff, start digitizing it, you know, so that we have these records and we can pull them up quickly when we need to research something. But if we go through the general fund and estimated revenues, you can I think it is really good that our levies are at a little over $1 million, and we actually make more money in revenue non-property tax revenue than we do in levying taxes. So it's good that we manage our departments as best we can, and we try to collect as additional income from places where we're allowed to get it. Works well. So in 17 we were at 1.1, and then we went down to $1,081,000. And then we went down to $1,072,966, and so we've gone down or stayed flat since 2018. And we're going to try really hard. You know, this year, a lot of the property values have increased. Not all, I think, well, probably pretty much many of them, if not all of them, have increased. And I think it's important for the residents to understand and taxpayers to understand that when assessments go up, it doesn't necessarily mean your taxes go up. So it's a good thing that your assessments go up, but your taxes don't have to go up if we can keep managing our budget in this similar fashion. So when you go through each line on here, for example, the real property taxes, that would be our tax levy. Real property tax items, those are the interest and penalties that we make on when people pay their taxes late. We made $17,303 this year on penalties for people paying late. So it's not always a bad thing to the town if people pay late. It's just there's a 2% and a 3% and a 4% penalty after March, April, and May, and then in June it goes to the county and they charge 5%. So we of course would prefer it if you pay us before you get to the county. But that's how we made this, how much we made this year and on penalties. And we set the budget number at 10,000 next year because we think there could be similar habits. But you know, it's again, every budget is a guess. You know, we don't know. Well, it's an educated guess. It is definitely an estimated guess or an estimate, but we do our best to use current situations to try to guess what's going to happen going forward, and we do our best. Non-property tax items, sales tax, franchises is the dollar amount from Optimum, and we've got 54 in there. It has been 61, and it's gone down, slowly been going down, and the 54,000 is based on 13,500 each quarter. And I think that's probably where we're going to hopefully stay next year. But you know, it was over 15, and then it's slowly gotten less as the things that we don't get paid for. And I think that's an area we're going to have to start getting active in. So the next would be departmental income, and those are things like well, you can see them all here: clerk fees, town board fees, park and recreational charges, recreation concessions. Special recreational facility charges. That's actually what, see, this whole budget is based on the chart of accounts, which you see under code from the comptroller's office, and the special recreational facility charges is what we call a pool. That's what they call it. So when you every now and then you want to figure, you can't figure out exactly what it's called. They have slightly different terminology, but that's the pool. And then we have other cultural and rec income. And that comes from some of our other programming, special events, zoning fees, planning board fees, recycling center. We put in the budget 150,000. We had 150, a little over in 2019. And then we ended up with, you know, it was one of our stellar departments in 2020. So we thought maybe 150 was doable for next year, and we left that in. We are not raising fees in any way, but because that question came up last time, but definitely the fees won't be raised. Next up is intergovernmental charges and snow removal. Intergovernmental charges in this case, I mean, that was a fluke. We got $15,792 from the Department of Labor, returned all of the money that we had paid into unemployment. You remember that from earlier in the year. So, yeah. So we do get revenue estimated. We have a zero estimated in the future, but every now and then we get revenue from places we're not expecting it. Interest and earnings, that's on the investments that we have. You know, everybody knows where interest rates have gone. And then the rental of our real property jumps up. This year we were budgeted at 43.8. Next year we're budgeted up to 82, and that's because of the houses, but also because of the solar development. So that's a nice big jump up for us. Okay, next up, oh, wait, I have a mouse that works now. Thank you. Next up, licenses and permits, building department and dog licenses. Fines and forfeited bail is our courthouse. And there was a change in accounting procedures this year. So whereas you see the numbers in previous year, they have an actual total starting in 17 of 41, and then 37, the courthouse revenue started going down. The state takes a little bit more every few years. But then what happened is that the state and then our accountant told us when he did the last audit that we were no longer required by the state to show revenues offset by expenses later. We just have to show the net number because it's just going to the state.
Yeah.
So we're just showing the net. So that's why you see a big difference there. So we actually had a bigger year at 14,446 in the courthouse. And basically we're guessing for next year, our estimate is going to be about an $8,000 net figure, which is everybody knows the courthouse. We have 2 justices. We have 1 clerk. We used to have 2 clerks, but we're going to have 1 clerk work more hours. The courthouse is a service that we are required and are happy to provide. It doesn't make any money and it loses money. And you can see why our net revenue estimate for next year is 8,000, and we probably, we're going to spend 20, 30. We're going to spend between 30 and 40,000 running it.
Yeah.
So. And that doesn't include the constables, which is in a separate category.
Brian doesn't pay.
Doesn't pay us. Okay. We have no sale of property or compensation for loss, unusual revenue to come in. We have miscellaneous local resources, nothing expected next year. We did have we're not budgeting, but we did have, for example, this year it shows $1,500 in gifts and donations. That was a figure that we had done before. It's actually a little bit more than that because we've got 2 categories. We've got the Equestrian Center, which received that $1,500 Sweet Pea donation. And then we got $875 in trees for Timor, the reforestation, which, yeah. So when the year-to-date actual numbers were done, we did them in September, late August, early September, and obviously the reforestation program donations weren't included then. So when you see some numbers that are a little bit off on the year-to-date actual, it's because of timing. But at least we do have a category here. People do donate to the Equestrian Center in small amounts, and looks like they'll be donating to the Trees for Timor. And other donations are tax exempt to people. So I do see that some people are inclined to do it. That unclassified revenue of $70, I think that was the $70 we spent on mailing the tax collector bills. So, and then we got that refunded. So from another area. So I don't know exactly. Very strange. It's just a little number. State aid. The mortgage tax is what we're estimating next year is $150,000. We don't get state aid and any other categories that we're expecting next year. You saw we've got a few things that came in this year. Mortgage tax and the reorg and efficiency, the $7,620. That was based on a shared services reimbursement we were promised, and it just took them like I think two, 3 years to get the money to us, but we got it. That is for what we have done with other towns in the county and workers' comp, actually, when we were in the workers' comp program. So those are some of the examples of where revenue comes from outside of the tax levy. We don't have any serial bonds. So basically our budget for 2022 has general fund revenues in the amount of $2,288,716. And what you'll see in the general fund is when we go through the revenues will offset that number to the penny. And we can walk through some of our expenditures for the general fund. There's the town board, the justice court, there it is at 34,006. Town board hasn't changed, except we allocated a 3% raise to everybody this year. We've only given the town board a raise, I think once, 2 years ago. Just the 4 councilmen get it. The supervisor, I didn't put that in 2 years ago. This year I put one in for the entire town board to maybe do a little preparation to make it look a little more interesting going forward for people that may want to run. So that's town board expenses. Justice court is 34,665, and plus their incidental expenses like law books and magistrate meetings and things they go to. That's 38,465. And you saw that we bring in about we're estimating a net revenue number of 8,000.
Yeah, it's a
So
losing proposition.
yeah, Justice Court here, unless you're in Milan and you're near to the Taconic and you write a lot of tax, you write a lot,
Yeah.
Pleasant Valley, they write a lot of
Yeah.
tickets. We don't do,
Tickets written on Roseville.
no, maybe it's something, maybe it's an initiative we should look at for sure. But right now, our courthouse loses about $30,000 a year. The supervisor expenses are 34,382. We put the deputy in there, and we put in the percentage of the assistant, Wendy Fred, whom I use. And that figure plus the 3% made that number go up. Finance department is a payroll clerk and a comptroller, a CPA, a bookkeeper rather, that also is our CPA. And that includes raises and it includes contractual expenses like QuickBooks and things that we pay for to run the operation. Auditor, I mentioned in an earlier meeting this year that our auditor is Ted Eglett, and our expenses are not going up next year, which was great for next year. So he's holding flat at 12,000. And that is for the main books, or this what they call the supervisor's books, complete audit, and all the cash audits that he does of the various departments.
Good deal.
Yeah, I think it is.
He's very reasonable.
He's reasonable and he's smart. You know, he knows municipalities and fire districts really well.
Yeah.
Tax collection, we did not add the 3% increase to tax collection only because we have a new person. We knew that it was open, and we thought we'd get started, and then that with the next increase, that one could be increased with everybody else's the next go round that one's approved. The budget officer also 3126. So that went up $100 from last time for the 3%. The assessor is that we have in our budget a 71,392 budget, and that includes an assessor, and that includes also an assessor's aide or an assessor's clerk. This is what was on the books prior to Robert taking that big job in Pauling. So those numbers stayed the same. Town clerk, town clerk and deputy town clerk, and any incidental expenses that are that are used in that office. And those included 3% raises, so those went up a little bit. Didn't change the attorney from, well, he actually went down a little bit because we do a lot of work here that they check for us, but they don't have to initiate it, and so it saves us a little money. So we kept them at 50. The engineering contract is the same as 2021 of $70,000, and you know that we're going to have to use the engineer for some road work in the future. There's some things going on Highview Road and things that Katie and I discussed that we'll discuss at the next meeting. Again, I mean, it's, it
wasn't long ago.
It wasn't Highview. No, Highview is another issue. I'll talk about that after the hearing's over. But it's Deer Pond. I mean, it's what's the one at the end of Burbank? No, the one up in Burbank. No, the one Dan McMorris lives there.
Oh, Hoofprint?
Hoofprint. I always say Highview instead of Hoofprint. Hoofprint, I was up there with them this weekend, and there's some issues. It's crackling. It's got those alligator cracks all over the place. There's excess water on the lawns, on the sides. There's one house has a septic issue that George is trying to get the health department to come over and take a look at. It's causing overflow elsewhere. So they've got some issues. So I think between Hoofprint and I think we're going to need an engineer in there to help us with the culverts and the problems with the culverts that either are not flowing. They're definitely not flowing. That's my technical suggestion, that you look at it and the water's flat, they're not flowing. So I discussed it with Ed, and we think we just have to, so this engineering will include the dam work we're going to do, any town work that has to be done for the planning board, the zoning board, and probably some special road work. So when Ed goes through his 2022 plan in the next meeting, talking about what roads are on deck, that sort of thing. In that is the expectation that engineering work will have to lead the way on Hoofprint. Okay, town buildings. I mean, this is the same. The only other things that we put in are things that we've discussed at the previous meeting. We're trying to upgrade the meeting room here and trying to upgrade the telephone system. So we added some things so that we could be a little more professional in our meetings and on the telephone, because there's many aspects of that phone that don't work well, including the lack of service. So that's the increase there. But we took money from, we don't have to make an infrastructure purchase this year for computers. So that was a swap.
Yeah, that's good.
So that worked well. We're all caught up with computers. I think next year when somebody hits the 5-year mark, we'll have to put it in, but for this year, we're fine. Central storeroom, we just dropped it based on an educated guess. Again, an estimate based on that people have been all of our managers have been very good at not spending money when they don't have to. And so we brought this down a little bit. Mailing, not so much. There's nothing we can do. We have to mail tax bills. We have certain things that have to go out. And this year it went up a little bit more. As we look at 2022, if there's ways to cut on mailings, we will. We already stopped mailing out the big packages to the planning board. We leave them all here. We digitize everything for them, send it to them, and we leave them bigger packages here that they come by and pick up. So there's been a savings there, but there've been some increased mailings elsewhere. Chargebacks, that's what we pay the county for things that they do for us, like print our tax bills, things like that. Central processing is all the things that basically that Andrea, that you oversee is mostly our, the paper supply and things like that. So that really has only changed based on incidental things that we needed to go. I think the phone system's in there. We put the phone system in there. Yeah. Yep. Insurance, we got a very good quote from them, and it went up slightly, but very little, as you can see, which we were very pleased about. And that's just because we have a good track record, and so far so good. Municipal dues are things like Association of Towns, which is what that is. Zero purchase of land. We've got $1,500 in taxes on property, which is where I think we are, which is where we were last year on the external, the Beekman taxes for property owned in Beekman. This is the fire tax.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, we're not being taxed for any of our municipal property right now. But we will always be taxed for the fire district.
Yeah, I see.
So that's what that is. The MTA taxes are calculated at the end of each year, and we've just estimated that it'll be the same as this particular year. That's kind of a weird tax for us to get hit with.
It sure is.
But the fact that we have to even spend $1,000 when we're not even close to the MTA is unfortunate.
Nothing in our town.
Nope. And it's the same thing carried over. Library and MTA tax was the same. The contingency changed from 7,000 to 9,761 because when we went back and checked all the numbers, there was a little bit excess from shared services because we're not going to be sharing an assessor's aid anymore. We're just going to have somebody work here. So any of those differences in savings we put in the contingent fund. Gives us a little flexibility if we get an expense. Constables, 3% raise. Dog control. I mean, we're a little behind on our year-to-date number there, but I think there's got to be a lot of people that haven't registered their dogs yet. People that haven't registered their dogs need to get that done, but we're guessing 84 next year. And building department. I don't think it's probably good for George to increase that every year. So we settled on in our departmental meeting, we were at 96,365 this year. And I think he's already there. If not, I think he's over that actually for this year.
This is an unusual year.
And very busy. So we decided, and we had increased it last year, but what we decided to do was leave it where it was, and then go from there. Let me just see if I can see it quickly here. 3620. Yeah, so our year-to-date actual is at 63, and it was at 56 when we did it then. So he'll probably finish up the budget, right, finish up the year right where he's supposed to be. But we decided not to go to 96 and just leave it at 94. And again, he and I discussed it, and that's a guess, but that's a service that is not supposed to make money. Well, we don't set up our building department to make money for the town. We set up our building department to be flat. And but our intent there is to provide a really good service. Like the assessor's office, it's not a moneymaker. These are things but we run it in a way so that he can be quick using technology, and he can respond, and he can get out there. And during COVID, as George said, when we put in the raise that we discussed at our last meeting about his raise, was because that, this office and his office in the town hall worked all through COVID, and he was getting calls from towns around the county to answer questions because they weren't open. This last category under health, what the state calls health in 4020, is Register of Vital Statistics. Then we go into highway admin, which, as everybody knows, that includes a 3% raise for the highway super. The highway superintendent's salary is in the general fund, carried by the town, not in the highway budget. And then the highway garage, any upkeep for the highway garage is in the general fund or carried by the town. All the other things that we'll get to in a minute about the highway are carried by the highway budget, but not the superintendent's salary and not upkeep of the highway garage. And these are zeros, things that we haven't had in the budget for several years, but I like to show 5 years running at least, so until we're 5 years away, that won't. Now we get into parks. This is all of the salary and the contractual expenses for parks, which includes all their upkeep, things like paint, things that they use to, mowing, everything is in here. And we've gotten to where we feel like we can run our park at 236,303, and Jake, the manager, Jake Gosnell, has always been quite good at keeping at those numbers. And it was a good number it was up a little higher at one point, and then we brought it down, and it'll go up on occasion because of raises. But I think that we're at a really solid number there for both parks. Recreation admin. There are various things in there. That's the secretary that runs the office. That is the percentage of the events coordinator and the assistant director of like the TGTT and after school program, and all of those are in recreation admin, which is truly an administrative line. Contractual expenses would be things like, paper and things for the copier and some office supplies, that sort of thing. Now, as far as summer camps, we have $123,286,000 in the budget for next year as far as running the camp, all in 134. And I think this year we had an outstanding year in the summer camp area, and we're all really hoping that we can do that again next year, and then look at maybe grow it a little bit, a few things, because it's really a terrific summer camp. And I think that because it was sold out this year, we had a wait list the whole time. We ended up at $220,000 in income on that summer camp. So it was it's really our larger moneymaker in recreation for the year. Now our after school program, we put 61 in there in the budget. That is an estimated guess because the after school program didn't recover. We went through the days again. I've talked to the manager, and they think that number is doable. We don't know how we're going to end up this year. We have after school, and thank goodness there's time. We're all the way through December. because of COVID, we got thrown way off on that. And this is a program that, needs to grow more. And I think once we get further away from COVID, it'll be more reliable, but now it's really, it ebbs and flows.
So I got a good group down there running it.
Yeah, we have a very good group running it, but between, see how we took TGTT and put it into after school.
Yeah.
They are combined because they're just very similar and they don't need to be separated, but we need to get past COVID and then we'll be a little more, I think we'll be better at estimating how many kids we'll have. And it'll be a little more of a solid performer for us. Right now, it's really up and down. The pool, while we had a terrific year this year in the pool, we've seen back in before, see where it says 83,000 to run the pool, and before that it was at 95. I mean, there were very, very large numbers to run the pool. I think that it's interesting because the pool is very expensive because the number of lifeguards and the people that have to be there. But I think what was good about the pool this year is that for the first time, we had a swim team rent the pool, which is something we've been looking for some time. So we had more revenue than we've ever had. But this year, we brought in $55,000 in revenue, which is really terrific.
Yeah.
The pool is not a moneymaker, but if we can, try to.
But indirectly, I mean, the summer camp really couldn't be without it.
Summer camp couldn't be without it, and it's great for the residents. It's not, again, if we like to run everything flat. We do our best, but sometimes revenue from other areas have to cover these. The pool's one of them, but we did have a great revenue year, probably the best we've ever had there. So that's a great thing. Concession stand, that moves around. We put in 14,440. Lori Smalley is the director of the concession stand. She does a fabulous job. She feels like that's the number between the labor and what she can bring. That's a doable number. So we left it at that with her good judgment as our guide. The Equestrian Center. Now, we spend $2,500 in a stipend for the person that runs it. With the Equestrian Center this year, we brought in another record year between the Equestrian Center and the pool. We have this year to date total shows 5,483. The true year to date total, well, that's pretty close. I mean, we have to spend money on the stipend, but this year, for the first time in revenue, we brought in $15,379. That's never happened before. It's usually, flat or a little bit of a loss. But there have been some wonderful shows there. There have been people that have paid for clinics there. I think Loretta Ryan's doing a fabulous job. So I do see the Equestrian Center as something that will be contributing to recreation, and instead of being a net loss, which is terrific. And people are they're increasing their interest in it, which is great.
Yeah, I've been to the events this past year. It's been very
They're nice, right?
Yeah, very nice, well attended.
And the place is beautiful.
Yeah.
The parks guys maintain it really well. It's a nice afternoon. It's a kind of a different area to hang out in. Athletics, we have that money in, and we've had it in there before. We just brought it down to 2,500. That is probably we use that money to pay a stipend and to have an end of maybe an ice cream party at the end of a season for whether as we did T-ball. Next year, we're talking to the Gaelic guys about doing another. We did 2 weeks of Gaelic football this year, things like that. So that's where that expenditure goes. Any athletics, we might be able to do tennis because we have tennis, a workable court this year. So we're going to work on that more as the new year starts. I mean, adult recreation is when things come up like volleyball and various things that people want to spend any money on. And we put a little bit of something in there, but so far this year, we've had $94. So some of that money may go elsewhere in recreation. They were going to do some volleyball and some various teams this year, but it didn't work out because of COVID. So we just left it at $9,500. Other cultural and recreation or special events, and these are the expenditures that we put in for Oktoberfest, Community Day, and Community Night. The next one is the library. We had money left over from the shared services also, so we added an additional 11 here. We're not we're waiting to see what will happen going forward with hopefully a negotiation with the libraries on the usage quotient. So this will get us closer to the number we think that is. But without having had those conversations, we're not sure yet. But that's definitely getting us closer, and we'll have to rearrange some things when that discussion is had. The historian was bumped up a little bit because she hasn't, she's been making $635, now she's up to 1,000. There's going to be a lot more to do, especially if we start digitizing, organizing that room. Celebration stays the same. That pays for things like flags, and if we want, if there's a death and somebody, the town is going to send flowers or something in lieu of, we have a little bit of a cushion there to celebrate or memorialize for that. These expenditures show zoning board. Those are a little bit lower than last year's based on year-to-date activity. Planning board, a little bit lower than 2021 based on year-to-date as well. As far as the services, that's every planning board member gets $100 and zoning board member gets $100 for each meeting they attend. So we just lowered it a little bit because not everybody they just can't get to 100% of the meetings. The recycling center, 41,000 is what it costs us to run with the two employees. And then when somebody's sick, we have two, well, definitely two. I'm not gonna say three, but we have a third person interested. We have two people that are on our books already that can serve as replacements if somebody's out sick. And then we're estimating based on this year's costs and our vendors telling us that they were not going to increase, that our expenditures next year will be at 99,000. Yeah, so it's going to cost us 140 to run the recycling center. And I think this year, if I look at it, let me see what page I'm on here, 8160. Hang on, I just want to see what we've done so far. That's not jumping up at me. 8160 is not here. It was left off the chart. Let me look over here. I just am curious because we've done such a good job there. I want to look at it. At recycling. I think we're at a little over, I mean, we're at 100% of budget for the year. In revenue. Yeah, our budget year to date was 112 and they were at 120. So we're at 108% of our budget. They've been doing a nice job, and you know, like really explaining to people, you know, what they have to pay and things. So I think that the guys are doing a very good job of you know, monitoring things and taking good care. Landfill expenses are based on we still have to continue, even with the solar panels there, we'll continue to do an annual analysis on the landfill and on the gas, the output that gets tested every quarter to make sure the gases don't change. Media, I think we put that in a different, oh, we closed this category down almost. This doesn't even need to be on here anymore because we put that in, I think, the central services, the central processing. And then these are all of our fixed costs. State retirement, that's told to us by the state. It's a function of the payroll. Medicare is all of those, as you know. Medicare and workers' comp is about the same, which is great. We have a very good record with our new workers' comp company. And this is for the A fund. Remember, we take the workers' comp, the total bill, and we divide it between highway and the A fund, or the town fund. So this is the percentage allocated to each for retirement, for Medicare. Well, all Medicare is carried by the town. Workers' comp is the town's percentage. The rest is on highway. Unemployment insurance, we put this dollar amount in. We always typically have. If we have a huge problem like we did during COVID, we were lucky enough to get that back. But that would have to come out of a rainy day fund. Health insurance, again, this is the 233,000 is the amount the town is spending, and then there's another portion, it's another 50 or so or more for the highway. So it shows you how those do go up every year and are expensive. Serial bonds, we have one outstanding bond. It is, we pay $50,000 in principal every year, and we pay a little over $15,000. We have a 2.9% interest rate. We pay $15,250 in interest. We have no installment bonds. And we have no interfund transfers. Our revenues are $2,288,716, and our allocated or appropriated estimated expenses are $2,288,716. So the next few pages are going to be highway. So the real property taxes for highway are going to be $818,051. Now, when we add to that, if you go down, these other things are incidental. You know, if we make a little interest, it's $150. That's great. I mean, that kind of fell out. The floor fell out of that last year, as everybody knows. And then there's, when possible, there's scrap metal that is sold. So we try to get a little revenue from that. We've got $500 estimated. They actually sold some interesting things, and we got, you know, like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 in 2020, but nothing much since then. We do get state aid in the form of chips, and we've got 158,000 in there based on the bump up that they had told us that we should allocate. So we're going to get the same amount next year. So that the two combined means the highway budget for roads will be $977,060, which is a little bump up than normal, which is great, because he's got, as Ed will go through next week or in 2 weeks, he's got some a good plan, I think, for 2022 that everybody will enjoy hearing about. In highway, these are the dollar amounts that we have allocated. General repairs, permanent improvements, that's the dollar amount that goes straight to fixing the roads. We have machinery, the contractual expenses are to keep that up. And that's come down from 2020. We've got it lowered a little bit based on, you know, year to date in our run rate. Everything we looked at was a run rate for highway. And so we think these preliminary budget numbers are solid. Snow removal, as you know, it's a pretty solid amount that we keep in there. This year, I've already mentioned this to you, but this year we upped the dollar amount for general repairs and for signs, two things that Ed felt like he needed more of. We have a lot of complaints about speeding. We've got some new signs up in some places saying, you know, this is a residential area, you know, things that try to make the truck slow down, you know, there's a few of those because there's many complaints about speeding. But other than that, his budget is about flat. We have a little bit more to spend on permanent repairs, which is great. And we did allocate a 3% raise to those employees because we don't, you know, with inflation over 5%, we don't know what will happen next year, but we wanted to give everybody their 3% raise, and that includes highway. This is their section of the employee benefits: Social Security, workers' comp, unemployment insurance. We allocate 1,000 over 2 years over to highway as well, and then health insurance. So all in between all of those expenses. And now remember, I mentioned in the general fund for the town, the highway superintendent's salary is there, right, as is the building expense. Yeah, the garage. But in this highway budget, all the workers, all the motor equipment operators, and all the guys on staff. And we know we do have a mechanic on staff now, so we're trying to do more in-house too. And that's where the general repairs. He's done a lot. So we've had highway revenues estimated at $977,060. Those are very tight, obviously, because that's based on a levy, and the appropriations are at $977,60. This is our debt schedule. This was a bond that was taken out in 2017. If everybody remembers, it was there was money from the landfill that went into that from a ban that had been rolled. They rolled over a ban. And then they added the money from the landfill closing there, and we've been paying that off since 2017. So at the end of this year, it's 2.89. I don't know if I said that. I may have said 2.9, but it's 2.89 to be specific as far as interest. Did I? Okay, thank you. This year it is 565,000. We make our principal payment every February, and we pay interest twice a year. And at the end of 2022, we'll be down to $500,000, just about 515,000. So that's the entire outstanding debt for the town of Unionville. These are the scheduled salaries for the elected officials, which includes the 3%, ex the tax collector, which remains the same. And then just to make things a little interesting, I think it's good to look at where we are in certain categories. As far as revenue goes, the biggest revenue contributor is recreation. And so we do try to encourage people to participate because it really does help the town. Our franchise fees are currently at 4%. They have been higher. Sales tax is about 22%. So, I mean, the most important things to the town are really a lot of the state aid, the sales tax, interest and penalties, which is only 1%, but it helps in a small way. Recreation is big. I guess mortgage tax. Those are the two biggies from outside the tax levy. Sales tax and mortgage taxes are incredibly important. And then all these other things roll up into the revenue that we bring in, which is obviously important because it's greater than what we raise in taxes, and we allocate that money.
Yeah.
So years like COVID really throw all towns into a spin. Now, as far as expenditures, just so everybody can see the broader categories, general government support are numbers like everybody in this building, to run, the computer systems, everything that runs the general government is locked into that, 734,000 or 22%, which is our biggest, except for the highway department. Almost the full highway department is down in transportation. That's the biggest cost of the town, 29, almost 30% of what we bring in. And then general government support. So it costs a lot to run the government and to provide the services. But the other expenditures, which would be the parks, as we said, it costs us about 7.2% to take care of our parks, Timor and Godfrey. Employee benefits are 16%. Debt servicing is down to 2%. At some point they won't let us pay off that bond early. It's non-callable. It's unfortunate, but it's a low rate. As rates start to go up, it's just frustrating because we were locked in 2017. There's non-callable and there's no negotiating on nothing. You can't move anything, but it's 2%. So it's a very manageable expense for the town. And then home and community services, 5%. Culture and recreation costs us about 13%. And you see public safety, that would be the constables. And health, which is, zero, negligible. And that's just like what we use for vital statistics. Actually, I'm not sure why we put that on there. It was so small, but it was one of the major categories. So highway and general government support are two biggies, and followed by recreation and employee benefits. Nothing too unusual there. And that's really it. The only other thing that goes into this budget when we submit it is we add a copy of the fire department's budget. We add a copy of our where we are on the tax levy. For example, we're not anywhere near the tax cap, because we're flat. As you stay flat every year, the tax cap starts to come down. So if we had gone to the tax cap, we would have had $94,000 more to add to this last year.
Oh,
This year it was down to like 30,000, so it dropped. So you know what the rules are. We can go up to a tax cap of 2%, and if you try to go over 2%, then you have to have a public hearing. You have to have a vote. It's
public referendum.
yeah, it has to be a complete referendum. So, but we've been flat, never near the tax cap. So, and we're gonna, that's our mission to try to keep that, because we know the school taxes are tough, and We were looking today, I think our cost per thousand in 2022 will be $3.04 per thousand. That's for the town, the general fund and the highway fund. And I think we were looking at the school taxes. It's like $25.80 per thousand for Arlington and $16.50. I'm rounding $16.50 for Millbrook per thousand. It's a big add-on to residents. It's tough.
Arlington is that much more than Millbrook?
Yeah, 25.80 or something. It's over 20. It's between $25 and $26 per thousand. Millbrook is 16, between 16 and 17. So it's a big difference. So based on that, we're going to do our best to keep things tight here. And that would be it. And those are the pages that get added to the budget, which everybody sees because we post it. We post it when we finally, at our next meeting, we'll vote on it.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any questions or anything you want to change, board members, or things that you might want to talk about? Here's the rest. Oh, here it is. I'm not looking at the screen, Andrea. Is there any questions or anything? Okay. All right. So if there aren't any questions. No, this is a public hearing. That was the explanation so that you can hear that.
Well, I have a lot of questions, but I'm looking at the ambulance service contract, and I see that it is $100,000 more than last year.
You're talking about the fire department, the fire district?
Fire district, the ambulance, the professional paid service.
Right.
So, John, maybe you can start coming to fire.
We had a public hearing on that last week. We had a public hearing on that last week at the firehouse.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
I'm assuming it's bad. Never mind.
Well,
Well, expenses
it's
go up.
expensive.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Costs are going up.
Anyway, that's a big deal. Understandable.
Yeah, I think costs are going up all over the county from what we're hearing.
Fuel costs and heating costs.
Fuel, heating, and these ambulance companies are, yeah. It's a good conversation to bring up that, but it sounds.
We're good to have a flat budget, I'll tell you that.
The town.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the town, I think our budget is conservative. I think that, this outside revenue that we get is very important to us. And once we allocate our fund balance to our capital projects, our biggest, thing will be to maintain enough of a cash balance so that if we ever get into trouble, we've got, like, look at that bond that we have to pay. Some towns have trouble because they're still collecting taxes starting in January, February, and March, right? We get our biggest bump at the end of February and March. We pay the fire department their money usually by the first week of March. So we're still waiting for tax money. Imagine having to pay a $50,000 bill for a bond, a principal payment, we have to pay it on February 1. If we didn't have, these are the things that towns run into.
Yeah.
So our timing,
Have a real cash flow.
yeah, we need to be mindful of that. Frida, what other questions did you have?
We're at the franchise. We go to page 2, franchises. It dropped.
Yep, again.
Why?
Because their revenue is dropped.
Less customers.
Well, they're doing other things. They're doing streaming and other things that we don't get a piece of.
Okay.
Exactly. It's been dropping every year. It goes down a little bit. I think when I first got here, it was over 15.
It's technology working against us is bottom line.
Well, we have to get that included. I think we have to somehow help them to get paid for that stuff. Page 2, okay.
We have special stuff in the pool we did at one point for people who are handicapped. Do we still carry that? We spoke about it 10 or so years ago.
We have in the budget this year, they requested one of those backboards to get people out of the pool and take them. And we have our pool director, aquatics director, is looking at, the only special thing that you may be thinking of is that ADA compliant chair to enter and to exit. She's actually looking at that to give us some sort of price estimates. We didn't put in here because she hasn't gotten them, but she was going to some of the water parks to see what they do. And it wasn't a real push, only because we've never had one request for it. But we want to have the numbers laid out in case.
Okay. Solar farm is paying
$30,000.
total or per month?
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? No, it's total.
Total for
It's
you.
an annual lease for the land.
Just so much sun out there.
All right.
But we're not, yeah, good news is we're not getting paid on what they make, on sunny days. It's a negotiated lease. There's also a payment in lieu of taxes that is not in here because I want to confirm that dollar amount with them before I put that in. So there may be a little bit extra.
Okay, so approximately 30,000.
It's exactly 30,000 in lease, exactly. There may be a little bit more from them.
And the town property is getting a little break on electric costs or not.
Yes, we get that break.
One of these things.
Yeah, no, we have been seeing some prices go down actually. Well, not based on the solar farm, but based on the LED lighting, usage management, that sort of thing.
It's just solar farm, I was concerned about, interested in. Didn't understand that.
Take your time.
You said 3% raise for everybody, right?
Correct. And it's the first time we've given everybody 100% of the people a raise. And that's just because inflation is so bad.
All right, page 5, finance. Now, who is the person? Is this your assistant who does the budget and so on and so forth?
Well, I do the budget, but I have a bookkeeper that tracks all the, yeah, she's a bookkeeper. She does all the payment of the bills and managing all of that. She's a CPA. We also have, remember, we have payroll, and the payroll is done there. We have a payroll clerk. And
We have 2 people in that office.
yes, always.
So that's finance, the 2 people.
Yeah, that's standard operating procedure here forever.
All right, now let's go to the auditor. Is that guy still in Hopewell?
Yes,
South Bay?
Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
what page?
On the, who's our tax collector? There were 2 names on the ballot. Roman and Sagamani. So
There was a mistake at the BOE. And Kathy Wellman moved to New Hampshire.
I thought I had.
Yes, and so we weren't sure. She came off of one line, but not off the other. It was some sort of a snafu. So
So tax collection is.
it's Kay Saglabeni, yes.
Budget, that's you. Assessor, this is the Viking. What's his name again?
Eric Axelson,
Come on, he is. I checked it out. All right. Viking. Spell it again, AX what?
Axelsen,
AXELST.
Sen, Axelson.
See you come in your form.
Good luck with that.
Jack, but no. All right, the attorney still, Mr. Bassoni, I assume he's getting better and better all the time, but we don't have to talk about that.
And also Jim Nelson, our land use attorney. We have 2 attorneys.
All right, now this is, oh, God, this is an amount, but we could charge more than that if we choose to, right?
Who's he?
The attorney.
This is an estimate on what we think we're going to be paying out in attorney fees. If we have extra fees and something like a lawsuit, then yes, it'll go up and we'll have to transfer that money in from the fund balance.
And if there's less, and it will go down, no?
Yes.
No, it just rolls over. Yeah.
And
Yes.
what is that called? Because now I've seen it.
What is what called?
When certain amount of the budget. What's that called? Certain amount of fee. I'll call you at 2 a.m.
Okay. Are you wondering what happens with it if
No,
they
no.
underspend? Okay,
There's a special lane for this basic amount.
minimum wage?
So we go to the engineer and it's the same thing. This engineer is not sitting here, he's not just working for us. So the fee in the.
It's a
budget,
contractual professional service.
70,000.
Used as needed.
Say,
He's used as needed, and we estimate 7,000 should cover what we're gonna need him for.
okay, it could be more. But all right, Andrea does records management, Andrea and her assistant. Town buildings. What does that mean, the town buildings? This is Jake making sure everything keeps running.
Yeah, all the things that it,
Is on, we don't have
Hey,
floods.
building maintenance.
Pardon?
building maintenance and if we do things like if we painted the walls, paint comes out of that department. And anything having to do with taking care of this building. And the other buildings, town-owned buildings, except the highway
I
garage.
need all except for highway, okay. Central garage, I see all the zeros, but what the heck is a central garage? Is this where you guys park when you come or something?
No, we've never used that. I mean, we can get rid of that line now that we're 5 years out. We've never used that, so it's irrelevant.
All right, central storeroom, and that's here, the paper, the mailing, and.
Office supplies.
Yeah,
Okay. The printing amount is what part of that. DCRPT, you talk really fast, I have no idea what that is.
Dutchess County. That is one of their departments. They print our tax bills
Okay.
and they charge us for that and other incidental things that it's really the tax bills. That's a big,
That's a big deal.
yeah.
That's central processing is under Andrea again.
That's really a town-wide expense. It's not under Andrea. That's any computer operating type things. It's a town board expense, really. It's things that the town board approved. Most of them are capital projects or infrastructure related or IT related.
That's beyond me, you know. Okay.
It is not.
You just say printing on this. All right, purchase of land. I don't remember ever seeing this in a budget before. Are we planning on purchasing part of the?
No, that's why it's zero.
No, these are the chart of accounts that most towns use. This is what we all use for our budget. And this is the chart of accounts for the comptroller's office. We don't use all their categories, but they're there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is a boilerplate. We try to fill in what we use.
But maybe there was some sneaky thing going on.
No.
Piece of the moon. All right, MTA, John, you said we're not even close to using the MTA, but we have to pay out.
That's New York State for you. They're gonna get tax money wherever they can.
So there's tax money going out, but we're not getting any benefits at all.
Yeah,
Well, you can drive to.
we have it twice.
It used to be on a payroll check too. You had to pay it. Now they got rid of that at least.
Well, it doesn't show up on my social security, but that's federal. Okay, now we go to page 9. Library. Did you say anything about this? And I missed it. I don't.
It's another MTA. It's another MTA tax that they impose, and that's what they call the account.
They call it a library tax.
Yeah, it's an MTA tax.
I could be
I should take off that word library, but it's 1989.
library, isn't it? Okay, now statistics, Andrea, this is, so she puts this aside.
It keeps records, yeah.
And we have very damaged porcupine over by my farm, and the DEC brought it to the Trevor Zoo. I'm thrilled
Oh, that's nice.
to be put back together again. That was fun. All right, I would just like to look at page 13. Under the programs for the aging, now that I'm really up there, we have talked about having some kind of a list of the people over a certain age, if they're willing, they want to have their name in. And every time it boils down to we shouldn't really do this because if somebody drops the ball and doesn't make their call, and Jane Iceland's like 96, 97 hours, she's in the house alone. We have other elderly in this town. Not me. And is there something that the town can do without getting nailed by insurance?
Getting sued for something.
Just someone can do it for people, and it's not just the elderly, it's big handicap.
So,
Think about it. Again, you're vicious, you understand these things. You
okay,
don't know it yet, but you will understand.
okay.
Is there something?
Watch what you say, Elfrida.
Tiny, tiny town.
If you want help with things, you know, using the word vicious doesn't really get you where you want to be. And it wasn't funny either. But the point is that when you talk to Jane Geisler, or if you talk to a lot of the older people that call in, and I know I've talked to a lot, I think they don't seem to want help. What they say is, I've got my cell phone. My son knows that I can call my son, and the landline works, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It just seems like I think one of the things that we should be able to do for people that either in a bad area and they don't have, and their power goes out, they don't all have cell phones, but that maybe the one thought we were talking about last month was having one of those senior, like a fair here just for Unionville residents, where you can get those lifeline companies to come. And maybe there's a way to give discounts, for a couple of years as people are using them, because some of our folks are worried about how they're going to get somebody to come and help them. And they don't all have the same types of services. But when I talk to them, say, no, I'm fine. You said,
We want to keep our independence. No, no,
right.
I'm not going in their home. I'm going in. I know which is.
well, but it's interesting. What I'm saying is it's interesting because not all of them want us to help them. If you could find out, or if we had a group meeting and said, what might be able to do, group purchasing where they could get discounts or something. I think that'd be a nice thing for us to organize for them. But when you talk to them one-on-one, it's like, no, fine. I have my son or my daughter, or I live next door. And it's a tough call for us. So if you can, you're vicious too. You go get them. You find out what they might really need, and we'll see if we can help. Okay.
We have this line for only programs for the aging. Is something going on down here now?
We have our seniors. The seniors come in on Fridays. The $5,000 budget amount for the seniors is not here. It doesn't show up here. It's in the recreation budget. So that hasn't changed. So they have money. They come in and they have meals together, and they play a lot of games down there. When they couldn't get down there, when the kids were there, they were up here. They moved. Sometimes they came on Saturdays because the kids were there during COVID. I think that's going really well. They seem to like it. They want more members though, so maybe you can help recruit for them.
Looking at page 15, we've got ASP and TGTT, and then we have all by itself, TGTT.
Well, okay. In 2019, I collapsed those two departments to one, so it would read as ASP and TGTT. It's the same people, but because I like to show historical data, I don't want to get rid of the TGTT numbers alone until,
5 years old.
yeah, till we're further out. So I'm just showing you, yeah, it's for research purposes.
That's all we're going to be needed. Is there did we find a cover back in Warren State?
Yes, it's had a cover,
You need a solar cover?
but it's for a seasonal cover.
No solar cover. We just have the protective cover for the off-season.
Seasonal clothes, yeah. Wonder what that would be like, if that could really be efficient. I mean, would it be effective? Because that's such a large.
You don't get a whole lot after the sun.
No.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
that's probably why they stopped thinking about that.
Yeah. Be a marginal benefit with the sun level there.
Athletics, I'm looking at page 16, and we're talking,
Did you miss everything I said? Did you miss everything I said?
I read fast. I
Okay,
can't read it though.
okay. Athletics, do you want an explanation?
Little kids, and then you've got adult recreation, and back in the day, there used to be all kinds of adult stuff going on. And
That's like movie nights.
oh, I can think that. Okay, good, good. Right, but there used to be volleyball and softball and leagues and.
Well, I mean, what's changed? First of all, the swimming league was a league, and then when we did the analysis on that, it was a huge money loss for this town, even though multiple towns were in part of it, but they apparently always, Unionville always paid for the party. Unionville always paid for this, Unionville paid for everything, but everybody else came and joined in. So we changed that. Now we have a league paying us to rent the pool, so that's better for us. And those kids don't mind the cold water at all. They just go. The athletics, the 2,500 on there is to allow us to organize and pay coaches for the Gaelic football that's going to be next year, perhaps some tennis. We've had T-ball to great effect in the past, but I think tennis court is done. So that gives us a little cushion there to pay a coach to come in, and then hopefully, in some of these cases, people would have to pay to have their child there, and then we can, at some point, there've been some ideas about setting up a maintenance, something for the tennis court, and telling people to stay off of it with certain shoes or, what are they called? Skateboards,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
things that will ruin the surface. So we have to talk about that again in January for the new year.
Okay. Historian still Fran Wallen, correct?
Yeah.
She's in the office now.
She's always had an office.
Pardon?
She's always had an office.
Across the town
Yeah,
clerk.
but her room was where all the records are, so.
Well, the records, there's a door leading to the records from her office.
Yeah.
That's the
Is
same.
that her original room?
She's in the room right there. Yes.
Oh,
Okay, which belong, okay.
She's in a room in which she's happy.
All right, recycling, we have 2 regular employees. Who is managing the recycling center now?
Myself with Jake, and Ed helps. Everybody kind of helps. They report into me because we don't have a manager.
Nobody wants the job. You want the job.
I do not want the job. They're very nice men though, and Andrea helps. It's a kind of a group effort. They on paper they report into me because we don't have a manager. We have asked, but no, we have no real
there's no
interest.
salary anymore, no budget salary.
Yeah, I did ultimately take it out. I first reduced it and then I took it out. Listen, those 2 guys do a very good job, and they report in and take care of things well. And with Ed pitching in and with Jake pitching in, it's been working fine. And they've done really well financially, so we're good.
All right, media. Now, is somebody going to be coming in with this new electronic?
Well, we put, yes, in the central processing, we put some money in there. We have to learn a little bit more about it. The proposal on the table was for 3 different cameras. So if you have like here, like one coming in the back, so you can see people speaking, and then 2. So that means that there would be a board, and that would mean somebody would be pushing a button, go to camera 1, 2, or 3. Somebody goes up to speak at a microphone, then, you push that camera. So there will be somebody needed. But the gentleman, Mike Miner, who has made the proposal to us, doesn't think a high school kid is going to be warranted in this case. Maybe we find somebody who's a little more experienced. And so we're working on that, but I think the labor market is tough, and we'll just see. We might put it here and John can hit the button for us.
Yeah.
And then obviously more people will be able to come to meetings one of these days.
Yeah, I mean, people want to be spaced out. I think it makes them feel more comfortable, but also, the good news about this new approach with a flat screen TV, either over here or there, wherever it goes, more people may also want to watch from home. So, we're trying to accommodate and make the sound better so that people can actually hear it on YouTube, that sort of thing.
And when will it be possible again to get DVDs of the meetings?
There was no plan in I've never heard that before, actually. So
We did videotapes for a long time, and then we went to DVDs.
well, you don't need them. They're on YouTube. Well, there's no plan, to be honest with you. I wasn't familiar with that idea.
How many guys are working one time, and how many people did you have?
4,
About 40. How many miles of road do we have?
46.
46. And snowplow guys, would it be these 4 or would it be?
Same guys, yeah.
Well, yes, yeah,
And Ed helps with that too.
we have emergency. Oh, Ed definitely does plowing too. He's right in there. But so we actually have 5 because we have Ed who actually does the snow plowing because he can run the big machines. And then he's got, I think he's got a couple of names of people that are, yeah, you know, if we have an emergency and he has to call them in the middle of the night. So he's good. I think he's in good shape there.
He has well managed.
You good? Well, we'll add the additional pages, and if nobody has any changes, this is probably looking pretty good.
So I see it like it's kind of private category. And it comes to a figure of roughly 4.2 million dollars. I think it's kind of like how to do business with that.
4.224214. Yeah,
So that's what it costs to run.
including the fire district. Yes.
I guess, I think the revenue, the non-tax revenue,
Right.
and then the fire says not to raise that's the tax.
That's the levy. That's the levy. Yes.
Last year to this year, what is that comparison of what tax increase or decrease or whatever should that?
Well, I mean, the highway went up $3,460 and the town went up 0. So we're going from $3.06 per thousand to $3.04 per thousand. That does not include fire. We don't include fire in the general and the highway fund. The fire is a separate district and it's run by commissioners and they do their own budget. Well, you have to ask the fire district because we don't manage that. The fire district, you'd have to talk to them about that 9, whatever the budget is. They report it in, it comes in as part of the town budget and it goes out on the tax bills that way, but we don't run it. It's because it's called a district.
I combine all that with the increase for a lot of what
Yeah, I mean, I only reflect the number from the fire department. That number went up. I can't tell you what cost per thousand that would be because I haven't calculated that out. I only reflect that number since it's not under the town's purview, it's under the fire districts. It is part of a town budget, but it's not something that we manage. The town portion is $3.04, so that's flat. And then the fire company went up some because of ambulance costs. So there will be, I think that you'll see a number in there that's a little bit higher, but you'll be able to see it on your tax bill, you know, what portion it is. It'll tell you exactly what that increase is, but I just haven't done that math because, yeah, it is separate. You're welcome. Anybody else? They couldn't hear Alfreda the whole time, Andrew.
Yeah, my question is on,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, my question is on page 20, the employee health benefit. Looks like we budgeted for this year, 181,000. And next year we're budgeting 233. Looks like the actual 2020 was 124. Why is that number so high? It just seems high. It seemed like from 2020 to 2022, we went up $100,000.
Page 20.
So health insurance amended budget was 181. Well, the health insurance always goes up every year. So the price went up and we have more people on it.
Okay. It just seems like it went up quite a bit,
It's,
in a year or two, about $100,000 based on the
it's
tentative
exactly,
budget.
yeah, it's exactly what we're going to be paying for the people that are on it. So we had, we might have had 3 new people come on it this year. 1 in highway and probably 2 people down in parks. So the people on our health insurance are all full-time employees, but we have, that number is a direct reflection of the 4 or 5% increase that the health insurance company gave us, and any new person. Anybody that's full-time is offered to go on the health insurance, and they just let us know if they want it.
Okay. It just seemed like a big jump for, 2 years,
Well,
$100,000.
It is.
I mean, I know it goes up every year, and
When you're adding people,
it's
then
been out of
that
control.
costs.
It's because of the people that we're adding.
Okay.
Yeah. And that changes some years. Somebody switches over because their spouse gets a better deal, and so they go over to the spouses. But, the people that work here, especially down in Parks and Rec, the full-time people all pretty much want to be on the insurance. But that's all that's in there. There's nothing else other than what the insurance company charges us, the number of people that are going to be on it. And then we divide it between those in highway and those in that work for the town. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Not that this isn't the only time you can ask questions. You can call on the phone too. Feel free. All right, so if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to say that we are going to close this public hearing at this point and have a short work session. So I think I'll shut this down.
Yeah.
I hope I'm doing this right, Andrea. Good, okay. All right, I'm going to, here's my other folder, here it is. I just was gonna go through a couple of things so that we are clear about our meeting in a couple of weeks. I think there's a few things. One, and I'll repeat this at the meeting, but just so the board members know, the final briefs for annexation went in last week, went in on Friday.
Good.
And I don't, then it is now out there. So the referees will review the final briefs, and then they make a recommendation to the appellate judge. And we have no idea, we still haven't heard a year and a half later about the appeal for the cell towers. So we don't know how long it's going to take. Let's just hope that the appellate court is quicker than the appeals court. But so that was interesting news. Also, we have, Andrea, I know you want to remind people about the shredding, which you'll do in 2 weeks, because that'll be before shredding. That's on the 24th. Yeah. And we have our grand illumination on December 4th.
Right.
You guys, everybody put it on your calendar, because Robert Taft is going to be. So he's coming back and very excited. So, and that's only because our good buddy, Paul Panko, is going to be recovering from some surgery. Okay. This is interesting. So just for you guys to start thinking about this, because I don't know if we want to, but we finally, and George Kolb is very happy because he had to go to another construction related clean energy community type thing class. And he finally got us. We got based on, this is our 4th approved CEC high impact action. We are now eligible for a $5,000 action grant. First time we've ever gotten any money from all this work, and we're moving in the right direction. But anyway, these are things for the board members to consider and to talk to people about. what communities, these are things that people like to spend the money on, purchasing electric lawn equipment for municipal use, like, I guess, an electric mower.
Yeah. I don't-
Funding
I
an
don't think our
energy
lawn
audit.
is, related to that.
Yeah, funding an energy audit, installing an electric car charging station, which a lot of people like to do because in the future, if you want to buy a constable car that's electric, remember we promised them a Tesla. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. Just kidding. But then we might really be able to take advantage of that electric car charging station. Municipal pollinator gardens. Talked to somebody recently who might be interested in helping us put in something like that around the solar panels, which would be neat underneath them. Purchasing bike racks, creating a sustainability fund for things like brochure printing and tree planting. Well, we have our reforestation and people seem to like to donate to that, which is great. Oh, this one, I think that Loretta Ryan might be interested. Installing a composting toilet in a park because we have the worst time of day. The Equestrian Center.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are some things that we'll have to talk about. Kevin, the flagpole. So we need to, we can get that wrapped up because we've gotten all the information from the solar developer as far as what needs to be ordered, but I'm not sure anybody knows exactly. I gave a what? It's like a black contained thing that absorbs solar power and then lights the flag. Just the bulb showed up? Okay, so we need to communicate. Let's finish that order. So we need the rest of the package and then I think what Mike Novak would love to see it come out of the recycling center and put up. Ed says no problem. They can dig the hole with the equipment over at recycling and put cement in and then. So we'll talk about it. Just want to make sure that you like what was recommended. All right, and then we'll have Andrea, so we can get that up maybe before the end of the year. All right, we have a big change with the judges, with Ray and Jill retiring.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So one, we're gonna have to very nice retirement, like a little lunch or something to thank them for their years of
Sure.
service.
Yeah.
But also, it means you got a brand new person coming in, and has had some surgery, but he'll be around, of course. And then we'll have to get a new clerk. So, it's a lot for us to do.
A lot of change there.
Yeah, it's a big switch. Luckily, they've all gotten brand new computers and things in there, so I think they'll be fine. But just to be aware that it is a big change. I think we need to do some research and talk a little bit again about the roadway and the private and common driveways and stuff. I'd asked George to give me some information and he put together a package. I think it would be a very interesting work session for us. I could give everybody a copy of what's in the package. We don't have to do it in December. I think it's going to be, these projects are going to kind of move along with the planning board, urging them that they have to have higher standards. So that'll work based on all your comments.
Yeah.
But, we're going to have to take this on and just make sure that we like what's in the code and if we don't. The other thing that we do not have in the budget because we haven't, we're so not needy, but that how they're cutting us off from that dog shelter, the animal shelter in Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
And because most people, but not all, have permits, so we know how to find them. There's websites that people use. Andrea and Mary Jean Calvi coordinate well, put things on websites really quick.
Mm-hmm.
People get their animals back. Mary Jean has used that shelter perhaps at the most once a year.
Right.
It's not a huge thing for us, but we have to consider if somebody finds a dog and we don't want to take it, well, she doesn't want to take it there anyway because she needs to drive over there and they charge a lot of money to the resident. But we are going to need a place with a cement floor, and if it's just one kennel, fine, but ideally probably two fences and then heaters and stuff. So it's something I think maybe Mary Jean could lead get a few residents to recommend some things and maybe a committee and then come back to us with a proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not going to work right here in Time Warner Park or places like that. So we can't just throw it up. So anyway, you think that maybe having a committee work on that would be a smart thing to do? Because
I would think so.
there are residents even that if they know about it, I think there's some residents that have the space that might want to even maybe let us run it from them and then have the residents
Yeah.
pay for their dog to spend the night or something.
Mhm.
So maybe we give that a commercial at our next board meeting and say if anybody has any suggestions, and then have Mary Jean kind of coordinate the responses, okay?
Mhm.
But we've got to do it. Okay. I'll just share any other information I have. I think there's just all kinds of climate smart stuff that I get hit with every week. We're going to have to talk about we'll start talking about how we want to use the we've got a long infrastructure list, and we're going to have to revisit that and get it all tightened up with the American Rescue Plan funds. And we're going to have to, at the next meeting, look at our list again and then say, why don't we, these are the recommended allocations for capital projects plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are all things that I have on there. The other thing that I have is, so we've had a problem with Central Hudson up on Highview, and I had two guys call me over the weekend about they've had these intermittent, I don't know if you've had this happen, Kevin, but there've been intermittent electric charges go out.
Mean the power goes on and off?
Yeah, it's been out for a couple hours, 3, 4, 5 hours. There was 2 days in a row where both went out at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for whatever reason, pretty much exact.
On the weekend, were you there? or
No,
you heard
it
about
was during the week.
Yeah.
But no rhyme, no reason, no wind, no rain, just power goes out. So, and it's pretty common up there.
It's very odd, but anyway, there's a really nice resident named John Mead, and he is neighbors with John, what is it, Normantes, I think. And my handwriting is bad, I apologize. And then Pierre Chestant. Anyway, John Mead called me about it. I went up there last week to talk to them. I think what we're going to do is we're going to meet again tomorrow at 11. And I had the municipal contact that we have at Central Hudson. We have a new one, which is great. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to give him the addresses and on Highview Road that have had problems, but they're basically, it's really all of Highview. So he's going to have to check he's going to check all the addresses and see with his engineer if there's anything unique about the calls and what they're getting. And then these three gentlemen all have electrical maintenance. They're very strong backgrounds in this sort of thing. And they think that there's a whole section over there that's just not being maintained. And in addition to being slow to respond to a fuse box problem, that there's a whole, and they're going to show me where it is. We're going to take pictures. We're going to send it to Central Hudson, and we're going to say, you're going to have to get this stuff caught up before the real storm. Yeah. I mean, he said there's a poll, as soon as they have 46 customers out, they know it's all on Highview. The minute there's more than 46, it also carries over to Canby. But they think they know exactly what poll it is and what the problem is. So we're going to send it over there. Maybe that'll help resolve it.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with Highview is the feed comes in from Canby through the woods. So whenever there's a tree or something that falls, they can't get machines in there. They have to walk with ladders. If they have to get an off-road drill, it's a long time to get that. The bad part is NYSEG is literally right at the end of our road. One of our neighbors that lives on the corner of Chestnut and Highview gets their power from NYSEG. So, I mean, Central Hudson's not going to give up the road, but I mean, it's within distance to be connected to NYSEG. If they can't take care of the road and maintain equipment via lines, it's between Joel Mta and I'm not sure the other neighbor where it cuts through their property and goes up to Canby where it feeds in. But what I was saying is NYSEG's at the end of the road.
Yeah.
They can easily hook Highview up to NYSEG, but they won't do that because it's lost revenue. But NYSEG clearly has a better record with keeping the power up.
Yeah.
And this has been going on for years and years. I mean, I've seen in heavy use times with a multimeter in my house during the summertime when everyone's air conditioning is on, you're supposed to be getting 240 volts or 120 volts, 119 volts at an outlet, and I'm getting 109 volts. So there's a drop. There's clearly the wire's not big enough. They can't get the voltage out to us because we're the furthest one out on their lines, and the power is always out. So I mean, I would be for they won't allow it, but I would like to see Highview get hooked to NYSEG.
Yeah, I mean, the rest is nice. It has a pretty bad record compared to Central Hudson.
I mean, I see
You can see
when
it.
our power's out, the power on Chestnut Ridge is on. I think
Yeah.
I can remember one time where NYSEG was out and we were on. It's usually the opposite way
It's
around.
really odd because you're at the very end there.
Yeah, we're at the end of the line, and it's just.
Well, even, and then last week they fried a squirrel. They were talking about, I mean, they have squirrel, yeah, that
Well,
was a.
they claim they have electronic like fuses that I guess if there's a short in a line, it'll try to reconnect like 3 times before it pops, and then somebody has to physically come out and reset it. But it doesn't make it any better. I mean, I have a generator at my house, and I probably have 1,000 hours just about on it. Since maybe 10 years. So you're talking minimally 100 hours a year. There's sometimes we're out for 3 or 4 days. So it's just, you have to have a generator to survive up there.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna write him a letter. We're gonna send our contact the addresses. We're gonna ask him to check on the engineering aspect of each house and what's going on there, look for patterns, and then we're just, they're gonna have to do something. They have to clean out that whole area. It's funny, they don't have to take cleaning trees out. I don't know why they can't clean it to have better access.
I've written the New York State Power Commission numerous times about Central Hudson, and I'll typically get an engineer to call me back and say, well, you're the furthest one out and we got to do tree clearing, but we have to wait until whatever bat is there goes into hibernation, then we can clear. So they'll come through and they'll clear like maybe every 5 to 7 years. And
That's the same for everybody.
it's slightly better, but it doesn't last.
No, but that's the same schedule for everybody. They just need something different.
Yeah.
Clearly. Wow. All right, well, we'll try this new person. We have a person on the inside who works for us, so, and so let's try that. And let them come back to us with what their response is, and then we'll go from there. But it's just ridiculous. I mean, this is before snow season,
Yeah.
He said it was like 4 or 5 times last week.
Yeah. That's horrible. 2 of them were at the exact same time.
People trying to work from home.
Yeah, but they can't work from home. I mean, a lot of these guys sound like they're retired, according to John, but all right, so we'll do what we can, and then we'll send it to the inside. We'll see what response they come back with. We'll just try different things. And maybe the NYSEG idea, maybe, we can force that if they're below service standards,
The state would step in.
it's a unique situation.
Yeah, we have an issue here, so.
That might help. All right. Okay, well, that's really about all that I have. I mean, there are other things that will come up, I think. We did, what did we do? Oh, the acting assessor was done, the opting out of cannabis was done. So, all of these things that we'll wait to submit that after the referendum, the days are passed. So I think if there's anything else, I'll email everybody with what we're going to cover. But that was the budget's the biggest thing to get done, and then start working on our capital projects allocations. I don't have anything else. Anybody else have anything? We good? We got to get that flagpole. That'll be the fun job. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
It's going to.